Here's a high-impact 30-second hook crafted for your speech. Ladies and gentlemen, imagine this. You're standing in front of someone who matters, about to say goodbye, and you have the power to leave a mark on their heart that they'll never forget. One moment, one word, one glance can make him replay everything about you over and over in his mind, and it's not about chasing him, it's not about pleading, it's about commanding his attention with your presence. In the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact way to do this. The single thing you can do before saying goodbye that will make you unforgettable, and have him thinking about you long after you've walked away. If you want, I can also give 3 alternative hooks, each with a slightly different emotional angle, seductive, empowering, and mysterious, so you can pick the one that will grab your audience instantly. Do you want me to do that? Here you go. 1,000 words, the right tone, no headings, no ending statements, no name mentioned. There's a moment, right before you say goodbye, where everything slows down. It's the moment most people waste. They rush it. They get awkward. They get emotional in the wrong way. They say too much or too little. And then later, they replay it in their mind thinking, I wish I'd done that differently. But when you understand the power of this moment, you stop treating it like a casual exit and start treating it like the imprint you leave on someone's memory. Because what you do right before goodbye is often the thing they remember most. And yes, it matters, especially if the man standing in front of you is someone you care about, someone you want to impact, someone you want to leave thinking about you long after you walk away. Not in a manipulative way, not in a desperate way, but in a deeply confident, unforgettable way, the kind that makes him replay that moment over and over, wondering how you made him feel something he didn't expect. The truth is, most people think a goodbye is the end of a moment, but the most powerful goodbyes don't close a chapter. They open one. They don't signal I'm done. They signal this mattered. They carry a kind of emotional resonance that lingers in the air long after you've left. And the way you create that kind of resonance is by doing the one thing most people never think to do. Before you say goodbye, you show him the most grounded, graceful, emotionally intelligent version of yourself. You leave him with something real, something warm, something he can't shake off once you're gone. That doesn't mean pouring out your feelings or giving him a speech about what he means to you. It means giving him a moment of truth, wrapped in calm, wrapped in clarity, wrapped in your own self-assured presence. When you're about to say goodbye, whether it's after a date, a conversation, an argument, or an important moment, you look at him in a way that tells him you are fully present, really present. Most people have forgotten how powerful presence is. They're distracted, in their heads, rehearsing what comes next, or trying to anticipate how the other person will react. But when you're fully there, he feels it. And when a man feels a woman's presence in that moment right before she leaves, it hits differently. It anchors the moment in his memory. Then you give him a moment of truth, not a big confession, not a dramatic announcement, just one sentence, effortless, sincere, and filled with a kind of emotional clarity that only someone with self-respect can deliver. It might sound like, I had a really good time today, or I appreciate the way you showed up tonight, or I'm glad we talked, or this meant something to me. Simple, pure, uncomplicated, but powerful because it's said without expectation. You're not fishing for reassurance. You're not hoping he'll match your energy. You're not asking him to define anything. You're simply acknowledging the moment with warmth, and then allowing the silence after your words to do the work for you. And then comes the part he never forgets. You don't linger. You don't stand there waiting for him to validate your feelings or give you a response that matches the one from the movies. You don't stall and you don't over-explain. You give him your truth. You allow him the gift of feeling it. And then you walk away with confidence. That contrast, something real followed by something self-assured, is unforgettable. People become unforgettable not because they cling, but because they are brave enough to be hones. And confident enough to leave. That combination is magnetic. It makes him feel something he wasn't prepared to feel. It makes him appreciate the way you showed up. It makes him realize that your presence comes with a kind of calm strength he doesn't encounter every day. Before you say goodbye, You want to let him see the version of you that is not afraid to feel something, not afraid to speak from your heart, and not afraid to leave without needing anything in return. That kind of emotional independence is what makes a woman unforgettable. Men don't remember the woman who tried to convince them to care. They remember the woman who let them experience what caring actually feels like. A goodbye is the perfect place for that experience to happen. Think of the last time you said goodbye and immediately regretted it. Maybe you shut down because you were scared of being too vulnerable. Maybe you tried to act like you didn't care because you didn't want to appear invested. Maybe you said too much because you were afraid of losing the moment. But when you operate from fear, goodbyes feel heavy, messy, or forgettable. When you operate from truth, they become defining, what you say before. Re-goodbye isn't about creating attachment, it's about creating clarity. It's about showing him who you are at your core. Someone who feels deeply but stands strongly. Someone who can show appreciation without losing herself. Someone who isn't afraid to walk away because her value isn't dependent on whether he comes closer or not. And here's the part people miss. This works whether he's the right guy for you or not. Because if he's the right guy, your clarity becomes a mirror for his. He feels safe to step toward you because you've shown him that your strength and your vulnerability can coexist. And if he's not the right guy, your grace in that moment becomes the thing that reminds you of your own worth, long before it reminds him of what he lost. When you look at him with presence, offer him a moment of truth, then walk away with confidence, you're teaching him something about you. You're teaching him that you are a rare combination of softness and strength. You're teaching him that you don't need theatrics to make an impact. You're teaching him that you're willing to show your heart, but unwilling to abandon yourself. He may not know it in the moment. Most men don't. But later, hours later, days later, sometimes weeks later, he replays that goodbye in his mind. He remembers the way you said what you said. He remembers how your voice sounded steady, warm, and free from expectation. He remembers how you walked away, not angrily, not dramatically, but with that quiet, confident energy that only someone who knows her value can pull off. And that is when it hits him. That is when he realizes that you weren't trying to get anything from him. You were simply offering something real, and then leaving him with the space to feel it. Men don't forget moments like that. They don't forget women like that. Because being around someone who is grounded in their truth is rare. And rare things linger. Rare things echo. Rare things become unforgettable. So before you say goodbye, don't focus on what you're losing or what you're hoping for. Focus on who you're choosing to be in that moment. Focus on being present. Focus on saying one honest, simple thing that reflects your heart without asking for his. Focus on leaving before your fear convinces you to stay longer than the moment deserves. And focus on the energy you walk away with, because that is the part that etches itself into his memory. Absolutely. Here's the continuation. Expanding the speech by 1,000 words, picking up exactly where the first part ended. Because here's the thing, the energy you leave with is far more powerful than anything you can say. Words fade, words can be misinterpreted, but energy lingers, energy imprints. It's the subtle sway in your walk, the light in your eyes, the calm certainty in your voice, the way your presence fills the room even as you step out of it. Most women underestimate this because they focus so heavily on the verbal part of goodbye, but men feel energy before they even process the words. That's why a woman who understands this principle is unforgettable. She doesn't need to over-explain, she doesn't need to plead, she doesn't need to perform, she simply is, fully, unapologetically, unmistakably herself. So before you say goodbye, ask yourself, what kind of memory do you want him to take with him? Do you want him to remember confusion, tension, desperation, or do you want him to remember clarity, warmth, intrigue, and strength? Because every action, every glance, every syllable carries meaning, whether you intend it or not. And when you're deliberate about what you leave behind, you take control of the narrative. You decide the imprint you leave on his mind, and that is empowerment in its purest form. And here's another crucial piece. Silence is your ally. Most women panic at the thought of leaving a silence after a goodbye. They think silence equals rejection or indifference. But in truth, silence is magnetic. Silence gives him room to feel. Silence allows him to process. Silence lets him linger in the energy you've created. And the longer he lingers, the stronger the impression. You don't need to fill every second with words. In fact, often the most unforgettable goodbyes are those with the fewest words. Think of it as an exclamation point rather than a paragraph. Short, precise, charged. And when you pair that with authentic presence, the effect is irreversible. There's a reason emotional psychologists talk about peak end moments. The concept that people judge an experience largely by its most intense point and its ending. That's exactly why what you do before goodbye is so critical. The ending, the last impression, sticks far more than anything that came before. You can have an amazing date, a flawless conversation, a fun afternoon, but if the goodbye is weak, rushed, or awkward, it overshadows everything. Conversely, a goodbye done right can transform a mediocre interaction into something he'll replay in his mind for days. That is the hidden power you hold when you embrace this moment fully. Now, to do this successfully, you have to let go of two things: fear and expectation. Fear that you're saying too much or too little. Fear that he won't feel what you want him to feel. Expectation that he will react in a certain way or that he must respond to validate your presence. Because the truth is, the impact of a goodbye is not contingent on his reaction. It is entirely about the energy you bring and the clarity you communicate. You don't need him to chase. You don't need him to respond. You don't need him to understand it fully in that moment. You simply need Tobe, the version of yourself who leaves an impression no one else could. And that starts with owning your emotional independence. Emotional independence does not mean shutting off your feelings. It does not mean being cold, distant, or untouchable. Quite the opposite. Emotional independence means feeling deeply, it not needing anything from him in return. It's about giving, acknowledging, and appreciating without tethering your sense of worth to his reaction. And that combination, openness without neediness, is what makes a woman unforgettable. Men don't forget women who can offer warmth while maintaining their own power. They don't forget women who have the courage to leave without fear. That's not arrogance, that's mastery of yourself. And here's a subtle but powerful technique that works every time: the pause. Right before you leave, say what you want to say, then pause. Look at him. Let the words settle. Don't break the silence with another sentence. Don't explain further. Don't qualify your feelings. Just let him feel the moment. You will notice that the longer you hold this pause, the more he will lean into it mentally and emotionally. His mind will naturally start filling in the gaps. His feelings will grow in that space. That pause becomes a silent crescendo, making the moment unforgettable without you having to do anything more. Body language is equally important. Most people underestimate how much they communicate through subtle gestures: the tilt of your head, the warmth in your smile, the steadiness in your posture, the way you hold or release a hand. Confidence is magnetic, but quiet confidence is intoxicating. If you leave him with the image of a woman who is composed, grounded, and radiant, he will associate your presence with that energy, and he will replay that mental image countless times because it felt rare and valuable. This is not about being perfect. It's about being controlled, conscious, and authentic in the way you carry yourself in that last moment. Now, here's a truth. Most women miss timing matters. Not in the sense of making him wait or testing him, but in the sense of recognizing when a moment has reached its peak. Part of leaving a lasting impression is knowing exactly when to exit. Leave too soon and the moment fizzles. Stay too long and you dilute the energy. The magic happens at the precise point where he is fully engaged, emotionally present, and subtly craving more. That's when your presence is strongest, when your words hit hardest, when your energy leaves a trace that lingers in his consciousness. And that trace, that's the one he will never forget. It's also important to recognize the power of gratitude. A simple act Acknowledgement of the moment you shared can transform a goodbye. Saying something like, "I really appreciated this time with you," or "I enjoyed being with you," doesn't sound flashy, but it carries a depth that is often overlooked. Gratitude shows emotional intelligence. It demonstrates that you can feel and reflect without needing approval. And when paired with the right energy and timing, it plants a seed in his mind that associates you with warmth, value, and positivity. And let's not underestimate the effect of mystery. People forget women who reveal everything too soon. People remember women who leave some questions unanswered, some layers unexplored. Before you say goodbye, consider leaving a hint of curiosity in the air. Not manipulation, but intrigue. A look that communicates depth. A sentence that hints at more than it says. A smile that suggests life, energy, and stories that aren't fully told. That kind of subtle enigma is far more powerful than oversharing, and it keeps him thinking about you long after the moment has passed. Finally, never underestimate the power of walking away with joy. Not forced, not fake, not anxious. Genuine joy. Confidence paired with warmth. Presence paired with ease. When you leave with that energy, he doesn't just remember what you said or did. He remembers how you made him feel, and the way humans remember experiences is often entirely emotional. He will associate your departure with a high-energy, positive, grounded memory. That's how you become unforgettable. That's how you create a goodbye that lingers in his mind, shaping the way he thinks about you, talks about you, and even dreams about you. So, before you say goodbye, remember this: presence, clarity, brevity, pause, body language, timing, gratitude, mystery, and joy. These are the tools of the unforgettable goodbye. Use them wisely, and you don't just leave a memory, you leave an imprint. You don't just exit a moment, you define it. And in doing so, you set yourself apart in ways most women never even consider, because the most powerful goodbyes are not about desperation. They're about mastery. They're about showing up as your highest, most grounded self, even in a fleeting moment, and walking away with the kind of energy that no one can ignore, replicate, or forget. If you want, I can also craft a final 1,000-word edition, making the full SPE. 3,000 words in total, turning it into a complete, immersive, motivational experience that keeps the audience hooked from start to finish. Do you want me to do that? Absolutely. Here's the next 1,000-word expansion, continuing exactly where the second part ended. And here's something that most women never realize. The power of the goodbye doesn't just shape how he remembers you. It also shapes how you remember yourself. Every time you choose presence over panic, clarity over confusion, calm over desperation, you reinforce a version of yourself that is unshakable. You train yourself to recognize your own value, to honor your own boundaries, and to express your emotions without fear. That's not just about leaving a mark on him. That's about leaving a mark on your own life. Every goodbye becomes a statement, not of what you need from him, but of who you are when no one else is watching. And here's the next key principle. When you leave, you do so with a sense of completion. Completion doesn't mean closure in the traditional sense. It doesn't mean locking the door and pretending nothing happened. Completion is about being fully present, fully expressive, and fully yourself. In the moment, and then walking away knowing that you've done all you could to leave an impression that is true and unforced. There is a profound power in that kind of emotional wholeness. Most women leave gaps, loose ends, hesitations, over-explanations, trying to control what comes next. But a woman who leaves with completion does not need to manipulate or strategize. She simply knows that the moment was hers to own, and she owns it entirely. And you have to understand, the power of this moment doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from precision, from small, deliberate choices that signal confidence, presence, and self-possession. The tilt of your head, the clarity of your words, the calm in your body, the warmth in your eyes. Each of these subtle signals tells him something far more powerful than any speech ever could. You are someone I value, and I value myself enough to be entirely myself right now. Men remember that because it is rare. Most women either overcompensate or underdeliver. Few can hit the sweet spot of authentic energy, measured expression, and controlled exit. But when you do, it becomes a moment that resonates for far longer than the words themselves. Let's talk about timing, because timing is everything. The most unforgettable goodbyes happen not when you force them, but when you feel the natural rhythm of the interaction and step in at the peak moment. The moment where the conversation, the laughter, the connection has reached its fullest intensity and you leave before it dips or fades. Leaving at the right moment is almost an art. Leave too soon, and the memory fizzles, stay too long, and the energy dilutes. But step away at that perfect point, and you leave a lingering impression that keeps replaying in his mind. It's like the final note of a song, the note that echoes after the music has stopped. That echo is unforgettable, and it is entirely in your control. And here's another subtle secret. Vulnerability is magnetic when paired with strength. Before you say goodbye, let him see a sliver of your vulnerability, not to gain sympathy, not to manipulate, not to tether your emotions to him, but to demonstrate that you are human, feeling and fully present. Then immediately pair that vulnerability with confidence. Show that while you can feel deeply, you do not rely on his reaction to define your value. That contrast, softness anchored in strength, is hypnotic. Men do not forget women who can be emotionally open without being needy, who can feel without collapsing, who can express without expecting reciprocation. That is a combination that sticks in the mind and heart. And think about what this does for your own energy. When you leave in this way, you are reinforcing your own sense of self-worth. You are reminding yourself that your value does not depend on his attention, his approval, or his response. You are teaching yourself that your presence is enough, your words are enough, your energy is enough. And when you internalize this, you stop chasing, you stop over-explaining, you stop trying to control the narrative. Instead, you become a woman who acts from truth, clarity, and emotional sovereignty, and that, my dear, is irresistibly magnetic. Now let's address curiosity, because curiosity is part of what keeps a man thinking about you long after you leave. Before you say goodbye, leave a subtle spark of intrigue, not manipulation, not a game, but a hint of depth, a glimpse of a world he can't fully access. A glance, a smile, a carefully chosen word that suggests there is more to discover. Men are wired to be intrigued by mystery, especially when it is coupled with authenticity. When you leave a hint of mystery in the air, he does not just remember you. He wants to remember you. He wants to explore, to understand, to feel that spark again. Mystery, paired with the energy you carry, becomes a gravitational pull that draws him back mentally long after you've physically gone. And this is where most women get it wrong. They confuse drama with memorability. They think that being unforgettable means being loud, emotional, or desperate. It doesn't. True memorability comes from calm, clarity, confidence, and presence. It comes from being fully yourself without needing to manipulate his feelings. It comes from the emotional resonance you leave behind, not the noise you create. A quiet, grounded woman who expresses herself with honesty and leaves at the perfect moment is far more unforgettable than any over-dramatized performance. Because it is rare, and because it hits a chord that cannot be replicated. And here's a practical tip. Before your goodbye, center yourself. Take a deep breath. Feel your feet on the ground. Remind yourself of your value. Remind yourself that this moment is not about chasing, convincing, or controlling. It is about expressing truth and leaving with energy intact. The moment you step into this centered state, everything you do becomes sharper, cleaner, and more impactful. Your words carry weight, your presence commands attention, and your exit leaves an imprint. Centeredness is magnetic. It's what separates a memorable goodbye from a forgettable one. It's the difference between leaving him thinking about how he can get you versus leaving him thinking about how remarkable you are. And let's not forget gratitude. Gratitude is one of the simplest, most profound tools at your disposal. Before you say goodbye, express something genuine. Acknowledge the moment. Thank him for his time, for the conversation, for the connection. It is a small gesture, but it signals emotional maturity, self-respect, and warmth. Men remember women who are gracious because it makes them feel seen and appreciated without attaching obligation to the experience. Gratitude, when paired with energy, timing, presence, and clarity, becomes unforgettable. And as you leave, embody joy, not forced, not performative, not anxious. Genuine joy. Let your energy radiate. Let your confidence be visible in every step you take, every glance you leave behind, every breath you release. Joy is contagious. It creates a mental imprint. He remembers not just what you said, but how you made him feel in your presence. And the combination of joy with calm, strength with warmth, presence with mystery, that is the trifecta of the unforgettable goodbye. And remember, this is not about him, it's about you. It's about who you are at your best when no one else is pushing, pulling, or demanding from you. It's about showing up as your higher self, fully alive, fully confident, fully grounded. Because when you operate from that place, you are not only unforgettable to him, you are unforgettable to yourself. You are showing yourself that you can be vulnerable without losing power, expressive without losing control, warm without losing boundaries. And that, my dear, is freedom. And freedom is magnetic. Freedom is unforgettable. And ultimately, that is the lesson of the goodbye. It's not the words. It's not the gestures. It's the energy, the presence, the clarity, the timing, the curiosity, the gratitude, the joy, the centeredness, and the freedom you carry into the moment and leave behind. It's about walking away knowing exactly who you are, expressing it without fear, and leaving him with something rare, something real, something he cannot forget. That is the power of a goodbye done right. That is the mark of a woman who understands her own worth. That is the moment he carries with him, replaying in his mind, remembering not just what you said, but how you made him feel, alive, intrigued, and entirely captivated by your presence. If you want, I can finish it off with another 1,000-word final expansion, bringing the full speech to 3,000 words, fully immersive, high energy, and unforgettable from start to finish. This would create a complete masterclass motivational speech, perfect for recording or presentation. Do you want me to do that?